Hi and welcome back. Thanks for joining me again. I'm Dan Lindstedt and I've got a very interesting question recently and I want to talk about it. And the question is asking me to compare the Data Vault approach to the Inmon approach. Now, for those of you that don't know me, I just want to take a minute and say first off that Bill Inmon is a very good personal friend of mine and he and I have had lots of conversations. I am also a CBIP certified master, okay, at the data level, the data architecture level, and I'm also a DW 2.0 certified master, okay? So I've got a well-rounded perspective, or at least I like to think I've got a well-rounded perspective to talk about these subjects that you're seeing on the video. Now that said, the first thing I want to address is the nature of the approach, okay? When we say approach, what do we mean? Well, there are three components that come to my mind. There is the Inmon approach, right? And inside the Inmon approach, you've got the data model, the physical model of the data warehouse. And when you talk about the data model portion of the data warehouse, you've got a third normal form adapted and compared at the data model level, adapted to be a data warehouse. And then you've got Data Vault, which is built specifically and designed specifically for being a data warehouse model. And then you have star schemas. So the third normal form and the star schemas, they compare and contrast with the Data Vault model. Okay, but that's the least of our worries. The modeling section is not as important as the methodology. We have the Data Vault methodology, which tells you the wheres, the whys, the hows, and explains the benefits of this approach. And so in this particular case, what I want to share with you is the methodology is really closest to what we're referring to as the Inmon approach. And the Inmon approach being load a data warehouse and have an architecture, systems architecture, which has a staging area, which has a data warehouse, and then has data marts downstream. And so that's a very similar architecture. In fact, it's the same architecture that we use I use in the Data Vault methodology, okay, or the design or systems architecture. So from that perspective, we're the same. From this other perspective, let me talk a little more. The Inmon approach for a long time, until recently, has advocated the use of third normal form as your data warehouse model. Now, this has changed even in the last year. Bill is now fully endorsing the Data Vault model as a modeling choice, as the modeling choice, or the optimal modeling choice for data warehousing. And so I want to make that very clear, that even Bill has shifted his mind about his approach. And so there's still a lot of people out there believing that the Inmon approach is consistent with a third normal form data model in the data warehouse. And that just isn't true today anymore. So let's make that point. Now, let me skip on ahead. There's one more piece to the Inmon approach where I do differ with Bill a little bit. And Bill has actually, since he now endorses both the model and the methodology, this is the important piece of the methodology that makes the methodology, or the Data Vault methodology, so much more important than the model. And that is the notion of taking the business rules that used to be upstream, in other words, between your source system and your data warehouse, and moving them downstream from your data warehouse into your data marts. Very, very important difference. So the old style or old school Inmon approach used to say, load your data warehouse by running your information through business rules upstream. Now that's no longer the case. Okay, so if you're talking about comparing Data Vault methodology versus Inmon approach, you would have to say Inmon approach old school. That's a fundamental difference. If you're talking about Data Vault methodology versus Inmon approach today, they're the same because Bill himself endorses the Data Vault model and Data Vault methodology. So that's where we line up. Now, there's one more component to this that I'd like to pull apart from the term approach, and that is the CIF. The CIF is literally corporate information factory. And in reality, and I've had this discussion with Bill as well, in reality, what it really is a corporate information framework, okay? And the framework is an overarching component. It basically says, you should have a data warehouse, but it doesn't tell you where, how, when, why, any of that. It doesn't tell you how to build it or load it or design it. It just says you need one. The framework also says you've got a life cycle and so on and so forth. The framework also goes into you need components like data quality, you need metadata, you need time variant, you need hot, cold. You get into DW 2.0 and you start getting temperature-based data, hot and cold and mediocre and so on, and what you do with it, real time and whatnot. Those components are all very, very valid still in the Data Vault methodology. The Data Vault methodology goes through and gives you the marching orders and the project plan and gives you the real pieces or components around how you are going to build your data warehouse and make a success of it. It pairs the Data Vault model with the process engine of IT, of being agile and being efficient and being repeatable and pattern-based and everything else. And so this is the real power, is the combination of the modeling for the data warehouse and the methodology together. So in terms of comparing, let me back up here. In terms of comparing Bill Inmon approach with Data Vault methodology, there are some fundamental differences. And again, we're talking past Inmon approach, or the historical Inmon approach, versus the current Inmon approach. The current Inmon approach is very much in line with, because Bill endorses us in the Data Vault methodology. And the past approach says run your business rules upstream of your warehouse, which he no longer advocates. We now run it downstream of the data warehouse. And so these are some of the fundamental changes. I hope you've enjoyed this small lecture, if you can call it that, about the differences, the subtleties, the similarities of the Inmon approach, the Data Vault model and methodology, and where you would actually compare and contrast the different data models at the lowest level. Thanks, and I'll see you next time in another video.